And welcome back to another episode of Locked On Chiefs. I am Chris Clark. He is Matt Derrick. What we're going to be getting into today is when is mandatory minicamp. We'll get into the dates. We'll talk about what has been going on at OTAs. They are in practice right now, although it is not available to the media, so we're not really getting any information about it. And then we're going to get into what Matt has seen from the rookies, what he's expecting, and then talk a little bit about the veterans and what he's seen from them and what he's expecting next on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
And welcome back to Locked On Chiefs. Thank you for making Locked On Chiefs your first listen every day. We really do appreciate it on YouTube, on the podcast, on iTunes, wherever you want to listen to us. We are everywhere, and it is always free, so thank you very much for doing that. If you're looking for a second listen, go check out maybe one of the NHL listens or NBA. We have those covered as well. The playoffs are going on in the NHL. And Ryan would always appreciate you looking at the NFL Draft Show. I am Chris Clark, founder of Chiefs Corner. You can find me over there. And he is Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest. Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well, Chris. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. And really quick, before we jump in, I do want to say today's episode is brought to you by Blue Nile. Make your moment sparkle with Truly from BlueNile.com. And Locked On Sports listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. This is a podcast exclusive, which includes engagement rings. Use Locked On at checkout. All right, so let's just go ahead and jump into this. They are in OTAs today. I think, when we were talking before the show, I think you said there's 4 days this week that they're in OTAs.
Yeah, this is the week with 4 practices, and they wrap up on Thursday with the last session.
Yeah, and so when is the media allowed this week? Is it just Thursday?
Thursday is our day this week, and then next week we get into the mandatory mini camp, and that will be all 3 sessions open to us, and that one's going to be on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, so the 14th through the 16th next week.
So we'll be getting a lot more information coming out about this Chiefs team and what's going on, who's there, who's not, and who's participating. I'm really curious. You look at OTAs, and right now, obviously, there's guys that are staying out. The Chiefs are putting out information. Chiefs Twitter, their social media is putting out information. But then you start talking about who's showing up to practices, who's not. That's not as big of a deal this week, but mandatory minicamp, it becomes an issue next week. So you'd expect everybody to be there, except for one guy in Orlando Brown, because he's not under contract right now.
Yeah, exactly. Or Orlando hasn't been present during OTAs. It's no surprise he's not under contract, so there's zero reason for him to be there. And don't expect to see him next week, and barring a contract miracle and something gets done between now and next Tuesday. So I don't expect to see Orlando. Really, the only 2 guys that haven't been there for the majority of OTAs has been Frank Clark and Chris Jones. Everybody else on the 90-man roster has at least been, putting in appearances. Most of if not the vast majority of the players have been there for every session. Just a handful of guys that may have had some injuries that they're dealing with. Participation levels are going to vary once again based on some injuries and everything. Right. But pretty strong turnout, especially considering that around the league, more and more veterans are taking the voluntary, and OTAs is pretty literal. And you're just not seeing as many vets as usual. And it's not as big of a deal, which is maybe why I think that maybe a lot of people just haven't been paying attention to the Chris Jones and Frank Clark not being there.
Yeah, and I think that's the good point. It is voluntary. It's something that they don't have to do. It's great for the rookies to be there, and guys, that are behind Chris Jones and Frank Clark getting those reps, George Karlaftis getting reps. I mean, that's a huge deal. Getting these rookies ready to play, getting any of the young guys that's are going to be looked at to make contributions on the defensive line are going to be big as well. And then you look at Orlando Brown. I'm not shocked that he's not there. I never expected him to show up for OTAs without a contract. I mean, and he's not going to sign his franchise tag, I don't think, in order to show up for mandatory minicamp. There's not a lot of reason for him to do so. That would kind of surprise me a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you're certainly not going to get a franchise player in town until something gets done, and and I echo what you said. I mean, to me, you've got a lot of reps that need to go to some younger players right now, and honestly, I mean, this time of year, unless you're a quarterback or a receiver, this is a passing camp. I mean, that's what this is. I mean, the rules pretty much set it up for. So for the other guys, I mean, it's really dry runs. I mean, you're going through the motions, you're working on technique. I mean, yeah, there's value that can be done there. But to me, these reps this time of year, really, I mean, you're allowed 13 practices in this session here between the OTAs and the mandatory minicamp. those are 13 great practices for the younger players and for rookies. They need the most experience. Really, the only thing I think you could even make an argument for needing a veteran there right now would just be for the younger guys to watch how the vets do things. But that's, I mean, you know what? I think you almost get more benefit from the reps. So to me, it's not a big deal if the veterans aren't there. It's probably says a lot more about the vets who do show up because, hey, if Travis Kelce didn't want to be there for OTAs, I wouldn't blame him. Especially last Thursday. I mean, that would have been a good day to take off when Mahomes wasn't there, but Kelce's out there. So, I mean, to me, that for a guy at this point in his career, that says a lot to me.
And it's just amazing to me. And Ryan and I talked about this a lot about his transition into becoming a leader on the team and showing up and doing things like that. I mean, it says a lot how much he's changed and matured over the years to get to a point where he's there at times where he doesn't have to be, and his best friend is off golfing. And I don't fault Mahomes. I want to say that, and I've said it a couple times. I don't fault Mahomes for doing what he did with that golf tournament. That was for charity. It was a good cause. Him missing one day of OTAs is not going to be a big deal, especially since he's been working with most of the receivers already.
And there's signature moments that just stick in your mind about about players and things that happen. And one of the signature moments for Travis Kelce to me is still after that Steelers game in the playoffs, and before the Foot Locker comment about how the referee didn't even deserve to be working at a Foot Locker. And Charkandrick West was standing on a chair 5 feet away from Kelce in the locker room, pointing at his head, said, "Kels." That was Charkandrick's way of telling him, be careful with what you say. And Travis wasn't very careful. And now you just look at the trajectory that he's gone on. And to me, I mean, you look at the way that he carries himself, the way that he's taken care of himself. I mean, he's doing things at an age that tight ends just aren't supposed to do. And that just speaks so much to his commitment to taking care of himself, his commitment to the game, and how much he's grown and matured. I mean, sometimes it marvels me that that's the same guy, because it just seems like I mean, those moments are just, to me, just so disconnected that it's like, man, Travis Kelce is, by absolutely no doubt, the absolute guy that you would point to on this team and said, go play football like him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the thing that really stands out to me is he's not only doing it for the Chiefs organization, he's doing it for the entire NFL. Him and George Kittle doing the, tight end academy or whatever they call that, tight end university. I think that speaks volumes for his maturity and where he is in this league, and really going to cement his legacy in this league as well, because he's helping younger guys come along and trying to bring them along.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, we're going to be hearing Travis Kelce's name for the next 15, 20 years, because even after he's out of the league, you're going to start hearing guys coming in the league that says, yeah, I had Travis Kelce's poster on my wall when I was 11 years old, and that's why I play tight end. I mean, that's just the kind of guy that he is. And it's especially, when we see some of the stories around the league and we know that not every guy is wired that way, it's nice to see that Travis is wired that way.
Yeah. And he learned from, looking at Andy Reid, looking at his brother, looking at, what Alex Smith, those examples that were given to him. And honestly, he's learned from Patrick Mahomes as well. I mean, Mahomes came into this league, came into that position, I think, with a lot more maturity than I would have expected for a kid his age. So I think that he's in a great situation. When we get back, I want to talk about the rookies that you've seen that have stood out to you and what you're really looking for this week when it comes to the rookies on this team. But first, let me tell you about our friends over at Blue Nile. At BlueNile.com, you can celebrate all of life's special moments, from creating the custom engagement ring of your dreams to gifting a classic and timeless jewelry piece, all at prices you won't find at a traditional jeweler. Whether you're ready to pop the question or you're celebrating a milestone moment, find jewelry as unique as her with the modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. Build the engagement ring of your dreams or celebrate life's special moments with fine jewelry. No matter what you're looking for, Blue Nile has jewelry experts on hand 24/7. Make your moment sparkle from jewelry from BlueNile.com, and Locked On Sports listeners get $50 off your purchase of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement rings. Use code Locked On. That's code Locked On. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. All right, so let's just jump in here and start talking about this rookie class, and that really includes maybe some of the UDFA's and maybe some of the first year guys that came back that's didn't really have a place last year. Devin Key and Zane Anderson. What have you seen from the young guys so far?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. One, I mean, first is that a lot of the guys certainly look like that they belong. Guys like George Karlaftis and McDuffie, I mean, they've shown up from day one and certainly looked a part of NFL players. They've seemed confident. They seem to know what they're doing. They move with a purpose. Don't seem to be confused or lost out there. Those are good signs. Some of the guys like Bryan Cook he is a communicative player. I mean, you can see it. I mean, and you can see why he's been a leader at a couple of different defenses now, back in college, between Howard and Cincinnati. He was a guy both those defenses leaned on, and you see it. I mean, he's out there, he's talking a lot to the guys. You even hear him during plays, yelling out, to watch for this and see what's happening. It's been really impressive because it's normally not something that you see in a younger player. I'm also really intrigued to see just, who comes out of this group, maybe in a special teams role, particularly as a return, especially with McCole Hardman having a bigger role. You could see how the Chiefs maybe want to, see who could return some punts. Byron Pringle had become their kickoff guy. So now you need a kickoff guy too. Isaiah Pacheco is really intriguing to me in that sense. He's definitely going to get a look. Justin Ross is going to get a look. Sky Moore, once he's in live activity, Brett Veach has told us that he's going to be in the mix too. All those rookies are going to get looks at it.
Justin Ross as a returner, that's interesting. I don't think I ever saw him do that at Clemson.
Yeah, we'll see what happens when live action comes, but yeah, they're gonna check it out and see if he's got it. I mean, certainly he's got the speed and the elusiveness to do it. He might not be a prototypical kick return guy, but you know what? Here's the thing about Ross though, is that I mean, if he makes the 53, where's he going to fit in? He's going to be a fifth or a sixth receiver. In that case, those guys have to play special teams, and and certainly he could be a gunner. I mean, he could be some of these things, but with his explosiveness, why not check him out at returner and see if he's got the skills for it?
No, and I agree with you. I think that's a fascinating place for him to start off his NFL career, because I think you make a great point. And Ryan and I have talked about this a little bit, but you look at a guy like Josh Gordon, who right now is wide receiver number 5, wide receiver number 6, somewhere in there. That's going to be really hard for him to make this roster unless he outplays the 4 guys above him, because he's not a special teams guy unless he's going to become a special teams guy, which we haven't seen. And I think that's part of what got him on the roster late last year.
And that is absolutely going to be, one of those things that is going to maybe affect multiple spots, because if a guy like Justin Ross makes the team and he's not somebody that you feel like can play a lot of special teams, well, now if you're going to keep 6 receivers, that guy's going to have to be your special teams guy, which, maybe that means that a Corey Coleman or, a Josh Gordon maybe isn't that guy. Maybe it's a Reese Fountain or, one of the other guys. The other thing is that, I mean, if you keep 6 receivers, you're going to probably keep 4 tight ends if everybody's healthy. How many running backs can you now keep? Because I have a hard
QB too.
QB is exactly where I was going. I mean, I think the Chiefs are going to have to keep 3 QBs this year if they want to keep both Henne and Buechele. So, yeah, I mean, suddenly, roster numbers get tight. So maybe it's running back, maybe it's somewhere on defense, but you're going to have to start pinching a number somewhere.
Well, and you're also looking at a situation where you're going to be wanting to keep 6 corners and 4 safeties. I mean, that's 10 DBs. I mean, Kansas City's done it before, so that wouldn't shock me. But you're going to have to give up a number somewhere else. Is it going to be linebacker? And I think that's one of the things that could be fascinating with Chanel is, being able to play multiple positions, playing, the base role, plus also being able to take up the backup role for Bolton. I think that actually could give them some flexibility there.
And not even that, but, Jermaine Carter, Elijah Lee, and, the undrafted guy, Mike Rose. A lot of people are really liking what Mike Rose has done. I can make a case for 6 linebackers very easily right now. And that's a position where the Chiefs have, saved a spot in the last couple of years.
Yeah. And it's a great problem to have, but it's definitely going to be something to watch over the next couple of weeks with, as you said, minicamp is next week. And I'm really looking forward to getting some more information on that, because I think that'll tell us a lot more about where some of these players are and if they're really seeing the schemes like the coaches want them to. But when we get back, we're going to talk about the veterans that you've seen and what you've seen from those guys. But before we do that, I want to tell you about our friends over at Built Bar. Don't forget, don't you love a chewy, chocolatey brownie? What about a caramel brownie with caramel swirled on top? So good. What if I told you you can have all that chewy, chocolatey deliciousness plus 17 grams of protein? That is a Built Bar. It is fantastic. You absolutely need to try these caramel brownie bars. Forget about dessert. These are better than dessert. Plus, the macros are very unreal. 130 calories, 17 grams of protein, and only 4 grams of sugar. The best part, caramel brownie bars are covered in 100% real chocolates. With Built, you don't have to sacrifice taste for healthy. You can have both. And all Built bars are made with collagen protein, which helps your body absorb more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. There are a million reasons that you should try Built bars, but for now, let's just say that caramel brownie will rock your world, and that's not an understatement. These bars are absolutely delicious. I really enjoy them. With Built Bar, tasty is the new healthy. Go to Built.com and use promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off at Built.com. All right, so I know we kind of talked a little bit about the wide receivers, Josh Gordon and Therese Fountain and them, but you started looking at the veterans on this roster and the new guys that are coming in and learning the scheme. Who's really stood out to you so far?
That's a really interesting question, because one thing that's jumped out to me during these first couple of offseason practices we've been able to watch has actually been a lot of the veteran newcomers that maybe are flying below the radar. I mean, I think Brett Veach and his staff had a really good free agent acquisition season this year with maybe some guys that you're just not thinking of. I mentioned Jermaine Carter and Elijah Lee. There are two guys I think are going to make this roster. But, Jaron Christian and Roderick Johnson, a couple of guys that can play tackle, swing tackle. They've really
Which is hugely important.
Very important. I mean, both those guys, I think, have got to have the potential that once we get to camp could be competing for starting jobs, especially, depending on what happens with Orlando Brown and his contract. Even some guys, have been around for a while that maybe, haven't been starters, like Justin Watson's been a name that really jumps out at wide receiver. It's a guy who spent 4 years in Tampa Bay, but really has looked impressive in this period. Even like a Deion Bush, in the secondary, he's another veteran guy, but somebody who's made a couple of big plays here and there. And that's a guy that, the Chiefs brought in for special teams. But if they can get something out of him defensively as a backup and a reserve, that's even better. Certainly, I've been impressed with what I'd say are, maybe not exactly veterans, but guys, coming back for year two. Cornell Powell looks night and day compared to what he was at this time a year ago. And I'd say even, compared to training camp last year, he looks a lot more confident, a lot more comfortable. Still needs some polish and work here and there, but I'm really intrigued to see where he is once the pads come on August and what his kind of development has been. DiCaprio Bootle, another one of those guys, it's a second year guy. I think is really good out there and looked really comfortable. Honestly, I mean, hey, it's this time of year. There hasn't been anybody that's really struck me as, looking out of place. Like, hey, that guy's out of shape, or, where did this guy do his homework in the offseason? I mean, it hasn't been that way, but I've been really impressed with the newcomers. And I haven't even mentioned the big, bold names like MVS and Juju Smith-Schuster. I mean, I think both those guys have looked good. I mean, Marquez Valdes-Scantling has had a fantastic OTA period. A lot of people are raving about him, inside the team. So I feel like the Chiefs, have to be very comfortable with what they accomplished in the offseason based on what we've seen in OTAs.
Well, we still haven't seen Sky Moore, right? I mean, he's still out with injury with a hamstring, I believe, was what it was. And is Cook practicing now? I know those are rookies, so sorry to go back to those, but
Cook has started practicing. Sky Moore is still running through individual drills. He's done, so if I'm not mistaken, I think he's done some limited work, but he still hasn't done any of the team periods yet.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's something to watch over the next couple of weeks. I would guess, based on this time frame, probably Sky Moore isn't going to practice before maybe training camp, and that's fine. He's doing the individual drills. He's there to see the offense. He's learning. And I think he can get on the same page with Mahomes early on in the season. I'm really excited about MVS and about Juju. I think that those two players really add a different dimension to this offense. And, a lot of people are concerned about the loss of Tyreek Hill. I get it. He was an all-world player. I mean, you're not going to replace him. But the key that I think I see, and I think that you probably would agree with, is that Kansas City's offense needed to adjust regardless. Even if Hill was still here, they were going to need to adjust. They needed more weapons. They needed more people that were going to beat. Demarcus Robinson wasn't scaring anybody. I'm not saying MVS and Juju should take care of people out of the gate, but I think that they're a lot more effective, and I think they'll be a lot more effective this year than the other options that Kansas City's had in the past.
Yeah, as a quarterback, you can just do different things when you've got some bigger targets out there. We've seen it. I mean, if you've got a 6'4" guy that can post up against a smaller corner on the outside, sometimes you can just chuck the ball in their direction and they can just fight forward and get the ball. I mean, that's something that Tyreek could do it, but not with the ease that a 6'4" guy can. And even going over the middle, I mean, you can see these guys making some plays that, especially even thinking of last year and some of the turnovers that the Chiefs had, which, maybe it was a little bit of the regression to the mean with Mahomes and the quote unquote turnover worthy throws. But how many balls did they have that just bounce off guys' hands, or just,
how many times did Hill have it bounce off his hands?
And Hill
I could think of at least 2 or 3.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you got the bigger catch radius. That's all you need. So, yeah, I mean, and maybe it's only going to be a couple of plays a game where that size, comes into play. But those couple of plays could be game breakers. And and Andy Reid's talked about the fact, there's a couple of things that they can do with these bigger guys that they couldn't do before.
Well, and the big thing to me in that regard is, when you looked at third down plays last year, if you stopped Kelce and Hill, you had a good chance at stopping Kansas City. I don't think it's going to be as easy to do that this year because Kansas City is going to have so many more options of what they can run with MVS, Juju, and Hardman, and Kelce, and Fortson, and all these different people that they have. And I didn't even mention the rookie in Sky Moore, who I think is going to also step in and give Kansas City the ability to do some things that it's going to be fun to watch. What are you most looking forward to in minicamp? Because it's a lot like OTAs, right? So you're getting kind of the same feeling for things.
Yeah, the OTAs, I mean, especially the way that it's structured now where we don't get those back-to-back practices. We just get that, and during OTAs, when we get that one every Thursday, during the minicamp, you get to see 3 in a row. So you kind of get to see, whether, especially the young guys, are putting together consistent work. Are they just, good one day and then the next day is a step backwards? That's to be expected. But, the really good players are going to show you that they have that consistency from the very beginning.
They're going to be stacking days.
Exactly. I mean, you want to see if they've got that. You kind of want to see, what the rhythm is, the offense, especially, if they can, can kind of sustain it from day to day too, and kind of build on what they were doing each day. Those to me, just the things that stand out that I'm kind of looking forward to from being able to see some consecutive practices. Also, it's, hey, everybody's going to be there. If guys are healthy, they're going to work. So we might see some guys that we haven't seen before already. That'll be of note to see. The one thing we don't know, and this could be next week during minicamp, is that they've got that dreaded conditioning test coming up. And that's the one you always kind of like to see how the players come out of that one and who's talking. Yeah. And we've got a lot of rookies and some new free agents this year that have not gone through Andy Reid's conditioning test. And that's always interesting to see for first timers.
Yeah, and I'm curious, have you seen anything about Lucas Niang? Has he been in there at all? Have you seen him at all? Have they talked about him? I haven't seen anything on his recovery.
Lucas has been in the facility. He's been getting rehab, but I haven't seen him on the sidelines. That's the one guy that we haven't seen outside. Some of the other guys, like a Rashad Fenton, who is also going through rehab, he has been on the sideline. Niang, not yet.
What about Fortson?
Fortson's been getting work in. I mean, Fortson is way ahead of schedule, way ahead. I mean, they were just hoping that Fortson might be ready to be a full go by camp, and he already looks like he's a full go out there.
Which is great for Kansas City because I think that gives them an edge, almost Kelce-like in some regards. I'm not trying to call him Travis Kelce, but he could do a lot of similar things that Kelce could do. So I think that'd be phenomenal for him to be available. Matt, thank you as always for the time. I really appreciate it. Tell people where they can find all of your information.
You can go to ChiefsDigest.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Matt Derrick, and you can find Chiefs Digest on Facebook.
There you go. Be sure to go give Matt a follow. Go check him out. He's going to have you covered for training camp mandatory minicamp next week. And we will have a lot more to talk about over the next couple of days. Ryan will be back tomorrow, and we will talk to you